If you've ever been to a fandom convention or a writers' conference, you know how valuable and entertaining panels can be. But if you've never been to a multiverse convention panel, you have no idea how amazing they truly are. Multiverse has a knack for making virtually any panel into a free-flowing conversation, one that doesn't always stay in the room or stay within its hour. Attendees and panelists alike often continue the conversation well after the panel is officially over. And this year, as Go Indie Now turns the spotlight on the Multiverse Convention with our ongoing series, in addition to our interview sessions, we've also put together a few panels modeling what a multiverse panel is like, in hopes that you get the feeling for what those who have experienced it already know. Once you've been to a multiverse panel, you want them all to be that way.
All right, hello everyone. I am Nicole Gibbons-Carrots, your moderator for the Center's Effect on Vampires and Lore. Before we get started, I'll ask my panelists to go ahead and introduce themselves. I'll start with Tom because he's to my immediate right, and we'll just go down the line from there.
Hello, my name is Tom DeSimone. I do content creation for Dragonmount.com, Wheel of Time mostly, but we've gotten into other properties, watching TV shows and movies on Mondays at 9 p.m. on a weekly live stream that we do where I have a different guest each week.
Hi, good evening. My name is Mark Abbott. I am a horror author out of Brooklyn, New York. I am the author of the newly printed Sinister Ascension, which came out earlier this year. And ironically enough, it's about vampires. So let's go.
All right, I guess it's my turn now. My name is Shakir Rashan. I am a hybrid author, primarily in the we'll put it multi-genre. I'm not about to list all of them. That's just crazy. And right now, I'm currently in my fantasy and paranormal bag as we're speaking right now. I've got one that's out right now called A Deal Inked in Blood. That one is a part of a YA duology that I'm currently in the middle of. That's the first book in that duology. And then in October, I will have Sageborn, which is the first in a YA fantasy trilogy that'll be coming out as far as that particular series is concerned. So that's me in a nutshell for the moment anyway. I'll take it over to Paige.
Thank you. I'm Paige L. Christie. I write feminist fantasy, epic fantasy, contemporary fantasy. It's a fantasy kind of vibe I'm in. And I am just so in love with this movie. I can't stand it. I've had a thing for vampires as the creepy vampires, not the sparkly vampires, since I was very, very tiny human. So, and I'm so in love with this movie for 1,000 different reasons. So I'm really, really excited to be here.
Glenn.
Hey, how you doing, Nicole? So I'm Glenn Paris. I write science fiction, fantasy, vampire fiction. I have 3 or 4 vampire short stories in different anthologies. I write a little bit of horror and then a couple of projects for Marvel.
And once again, I'm Nicole Carrots. I am the editor of Slay, Stories of the Vampire Noir. I am co-editor of Blackened Roots, which is an anthology of the undead. Okay, so we'll go ahead and just get started because I know we have a lot. There's a lot in this movie to unpack. And I want to make sure that we have time to talk about as many of the things we possibly can before Joe kicks us out. So there are a lot of themes in Sinners. There are several. But I wanted to kind of get the panel's thoughts on the movie's theme of duality, right? I mean, obviously you have Smoke and Sack as characters that embody that duality, but in what ways and what impact does duality have on the stories in Sinners? And you guys can just like hop in, be respectful, of course, but I'm not going to go down the line. Let's have a conversation.
One of the things I really loved about just the two of them, and not to say it a million times, but the duality between the two of them, not just being twins. It goes deeper than just like the colors of their clothes, because obviously one was more
Right.
blue. He wore a lot of blues, and one wore a lot of reds and pinks and purples, which is the one I gravitated more toward. A lot sharper for me. I like those colors. That's my palette. I like that palette. But one other like subtle thing that I didn't really notice until the second time I watched it is that, and I'm gonna confuse these throughout the whole night because it's smoke and stack and like colors. So like my Liz Dexy is gonna play crazy with it. But one of them wears traditional Irish kind of suit and hat, and that's smoke, I think, because in the blue.
Mhm.
And then Stack wears the more Italian type suit and hat, and that's a nod to like how the Italian and Irish cultures kind of had a similar entry into the American society, but then eventually used kind of their whiteness to join like the masses and kind of abandon their minority status and kind of abandon the Black culture as well. Because instead of helping and making sure that no one got treated that way, they were just like, let me get mine and make sure I don't get treated that way. So, and that was kind of a theme throughout the whole movie, which I found really interesting.
Mark?
Mary's duality.
Yes.
The fact that she's a mixed, she's mixed young lady. But what's interesting about it is that she can play both sides of the fence. Um, and then when we get to the end, when we get to the 90s, where she is now kind of dressed up as like one of the fly girls
Yeah.
from
Right.
In Living Color. It's almost that now it's that duality that she had during the Jim Crow era. She had to kind of play that dual role. She finally gets to the point where she still kind of plays that dual role of the light skinned girl, but
Hmm.
now we're in the 90s where that's sort of that's not looked upon as like, oh really, you with a light skinned chick? It's like, oh wow,
Yes.
you got yourself a light skinned chick. So
Right.
it's her and and the fact that how she goes from understanding, like when she turns, that understanding of, now I'm almost like she adds on to her duality because now she's a vampire, now she's undead, so she's got all of this. But I think part of her is like, life can only get better for me in that sense. So she's the one I look at with the duality.
Yeah, and to piggyback off of Mark, it definitely, it's almost like she finally caught up with the times where they could actually finally be together, and it was not something that would be a measure of, if either one is caught, they're going to get strung up,
Hmm.
Right.
type of thing. It's, eventually it just time finally caught up with them at that point. It's unfortunate that they had to be bitten and become vampires for it to come to that fruition. But at the same time, you got a chance to see them really get comfortable in the skin that they were in, as opposed to at the times that they were in. Stack was like, you know what, I'm trying to find the first exit door I can find because I'm not trying to get strung up.
Right.
Meanwhile, Mary can kind of, flow between both worlds. And I see that same parallel, what they were able to do on both sides of the street when Smoke and Stack first showed up. He's on one side serving the cult folk, and she's on the other side serving the other folk. And we're just
Bow
like,
and grace. Yeah.
we get to, so it's almost like they had their own duality, even though they were separate entities. But even as a couple, they still were able to kind of play both sides against the middle. And that was the thing that really, in a lot of instances, time has not really changed in that regard. You had it back then, you still have it now.
Yeah, and I didn't catch it the first time I watched the movie, but when they're at the train depot and Sammy sees Mary and he says, "There's a white woman watching you." And Smoke says, Stack says, "Are you sure she's white?"
Mhm.
And then a little bit later, they have an interaction, and Sammy says, "Well, maybe she's not white." You know,
Right.
I thought that was really interesting when I watched it the second time. The other thing, and my roommate and I were just talking about this as I was telling her what I was going to do this evening. We're talking about Annie and Mary, and when the vampires show up at the juke, that Annie has an awareness of danger, and Annie is, the black woman has this awareness of danger. She has an understanding of something that's happening, and Mary's like, well, I'm just going to go see if they're good people, and so there's a duality in their experience of
And the
danger in the
women.
world
Mhm.
as to how they react to these strangers. So we were talking about that and how that was really, really interesting as well. So many layers to this movie, I can't stand it. But yeah, that was one thing that leaped to mind to me, is that difference between the women, and yet they consider each other family, but their experiences in the world are extremely different.
Absolutely.
One of the things
But
too
go ahead,
in
Tom.
the oh sorry, in the train station, Stack, I think, says to her, she says go to hell, and he says I'll save you a seat, and then later they end up vampires together for 100 years.
Yeah. So, staying on the same theme of Mary and Annie and Smoke and Stack. Uh, it was interesting that these are the two love interests, and they couldn't be more different in appearance. And they that was a real deep relationship they had. Mary had the choice. She was passe blanc, as they say in New Orleans, but she had the choice to be white, and she could have done that. But she chose not to be. She chose to be with Stack, and she wanted him regardless of the danger to herself. His issue was less getting lynched than her being hurt by being with him, because he knew what happened to white women who were with black men. Yeah, the guy's going to get lynched. We know that, but things aren't going to turn out well for her either. But did you see her reaction when they bit Annie? And they were happy about Annie being big because she's joining the new family. But when Smoke staked her, did you see the reaction? Mary and Stack were horrified. They were horrified that Annie wasn't going to be with them for eternity, because they really did want to be family.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, yeah. Which is why Annie asked, and she told him, if I get bitten, this is what I want you to do.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Because I have somebody waiting for me. And
Right.
her family, right?
Yep.
Yes.
Her family was what she was most focused on. Her daughter, her daughter, right? That had passed on and was waiting. So she didn't want to spend eternity without her child. And they were both, she and Smoke were still grieving a lot. But then there's that duality of what is happiness, or what is joy for you, or what is a happy ever after for you, right? Theirs is in the afterlife, whereas Stack and Mary's is in the eternal undead life, right? There's some duality there as well. Okay.
And I think also that there's a duality with the vampire, with Remick, because he is by the nature of his vampireness, he's evil. But he sees a greater evil in the clan. He's evil, but he's warning them that the clan is coming, and it's going to be safer for you to come and be a vampire with me than it is for you to hang out here. And I was like, okay, my head was spinning at that one, because here is an evil calling out evil.
Yeah, I don't think he was offering it as an apple. I think he was using it as a method to scare them to join him.
Yeah, because
I don't think he was saying they're a greater evil in the sense that he believed that. I think he used it as a lure, basically, for them.
Absolutely.
I also think that when they became undead, I think they were beyond race, because he had, I think, if I'm not mistaken, those were Roman gold pieces that he had. they've been around for 2,000 years. This whole concept of race is really only a couple hundred years old. This was invented in the 1800s, 1700s, 1800s or so, to help define things. But this whole thing of race, I think he essentially outgrew it when he became undead. And I think that was also part of their lore and part of that underlying theme. Join us. We're beyond this racism and we're going to be one family through blood.
And yet he's still willing to use it as a tool.
Oh yes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
So
manipulation
I'm
tactic.
fascinated
Absolutely.
with that.
He was also,
By
I
any
feel like
means
he also,
necessary.
oh yeah. And I felt like he also kind of represented like the colonizer culture in the sense of gobbling up other people's cultures to try to fill himself while not really having any culture himself.
That's a good point, and it's actually Tom. That's actually a good segue too, because I want to talk about the music in Sinners. I think we probably all have a lot to say about that. So another big conversation about Sinners is its music, but particularly the music montage. Music and its roots in African culture through the diaspora, in addition to its evolution from tribal songs to jazz to R&B to hip hop to country and rap. Those are all derived from Black folks. Stay mad. Country came from us.
And rock and roll too.
So Delta Slim made a point earlier before the Juke Joint kicked off that people love the music. They don't love the people who make it. And so what impact did the music montage have on you? That's one. And two, why do you think Coogler included it in the film? And Mark, I want to start with you. What's his purpose? Or what's the purpose of the montage?
Well, I thought the montage, I'll say this. This is the first time I've seen something like that. And it worked. Because we had a Western that came up on Netflix a while ago where they were trying to infuse hip hop with, it was the Black Western that they did.
The Harder They Fall.
Harder They Fall.
And I told somebody the music completely took me out of the story because you were interjecting 90s, 80s music into scenes that had nothing to do, that weren't married to it.
Right.
The montage scene, why that is so beautifully done is because story transcends music, and story are married together. Every song is a story. To go from seeing the evolution to just watch the evolution of it, walking through the Juke, watching. I think one of my favorites was watching the LA guys at the roulette table, while in the background you still got the jazz musicians playing.
Absolutely.
But I also want to extend that to Remix montage scene. Because he, in a dark way, Remix whole thing, I'll talk about Remick later, but that he believed in the roots of music as well. And it was amazing, like how he starts when they start to play. I forget what that Irish song is called, but
It's called Robin Creed.
Yeah,
is that what it's called? Okay,
yeah.
And
It's Wild Mountain Time or Go Lassie Go, depending on who you're talking to. Yeah.
Okay. Watching them embrace as he's singing it, and they're all kind of embracing the song at the same time was an amazing. It was to go from that to kind of circle back around and then kind of go back, because even when he shows up and he starts playing the banjo, who's it? Smoke? Is it Smoke that's like, they're pretty good. It's like, man, get out of here. That look alone just was the price of admission. But I thought giving us an insight of how music evolves and how each bit of it is borrowed through time to evolve into something else was magnificently done. I thought that was a wonderful addition to the film.
Looking at, you had a good point about, the music in The Harder They Fall not quite fitting in. You know, I'm from Queens, from Hollis, Queens. So, you know, I was kind of there when they started mixing stuff. So, you know, when you mix two songs, you get the beat, and then you mix a song in, and they kind of merge. And that's what they did with ancient African beats, with ragtime, with jazz, with hip hop, with soul, and they went through all of that, and they kept the same rhythm. So they you know, it was a blend. It wasn't a switch.
Right.
And music is timeless, and I think that's the key. They were attracted. The vampires were attracted to the music more so than the blood. They knew Sammy was the source, even through closed doors.
Right.
He didn't say a word when they identified him as the voice. Oh, you're the voice. We came for you.
I think it's important to also include Bao, the Chinese music that was also incorporated in the montage as well for Bao and
yeah, they ran through the gambit. I mean, they played as many different cultures as they possibly could within that same montage. That was something that you couldn't just experience one time. You had to watch it a second time just to kind of be able to see the entirety of it. The first time you were gonna miss it, because Lord knows I know I did. So when I finally got the second one through, when I watched the second time, it was like, okay, this is what I missed. And okay, I see where they came from with it. So you got a chance to see the synergy of it all. Yes. And regardless of culture, regardless of the roots of that music, and still be able to get the same bass line throughout the whole thing.
Yeah.
I think too.
I was laughing at the synergy in Sinners.
Yeah.
Paige.
I think too that the way they included the dancers in the music, the ballerinas and the hip hop dancers and the Chinese dancers, the fan dancers, as they interacted with the music in Middle Eastern culture, there's a concept called sultana, and it is the concept of music and dancer feeding each other, so you don't know who's leading. Is the music leading or is the dancer leading? And then there's a second concept called tarab that includes the audience or the people watching this happen. And so what that scene did, once I got done crying watching it, every time I've seen it, because I just bawled all the way through it. I've seen it 3 times. I've cried all the way through it 3 times. So I'm still seeing things when I wipe my eyes. But that scene included the dancers on screen, the musicians on screen, and the audience in a way that when Remick and his crew showed up, we knew exactly why they were there. He didn't even have to say you're the voice. We knew why they were there. In their mind, the barn was gone. It had burned to the ground, and all they could see was the expression of the art and the music and the connection that was formed. And so I thought it was pure genius. Yeah.
For me, the challenge was, go ahead, Tom.
Something that Mark said before that I think it was Mark that said it before. It wasn't just dancing and music and like seeing the singers and or the dancers. They had like little bits of story in there too. Like you said, we had like the guys in the back room playing roulette. And we had, a little bit like the DJ, and like just as they went around the room, you saw someone working the door. Like it wasn't Cornbread, it was somebody else. Like, as they went through, that was really cool too. It flowed so perfectly, that scene. And the Chad had mentioned the cinematographer. I think it was the cinematographer, Autumn. Yeah.
One of the things that I liked, and I think Paige brought it up a little bit, is the dancing. So, if you notice, they had a piano, they had a guitar, but they didn't have a drum, and they didn't have a bass. And the stomping of the feet served to that beat. What was Sammy's girlfriend's name? Perline. When she was on stage singing and she was stomping her feet, that was the drum beat. That was the beat. And everybody was catching in and mimicking that beat, that rhythm.
Yep.
Like you said, it was more than just the musician and the singer. It was the audience too. And that was the point. he was able to get the whole community, the whole place into the.
That's the theme of the Black church, though. I mean, this was almost like a dark church.
You took the words right out of my mouth,
Yeah.
but just to say it's a mirror, or it's a mirror for what happens with Sammy's father in the church. Glenn, you took that right out of my brain. You're like, Nicole, let me borrow that. I do want to mention that during the montage, when the roof goes, right? And they, for me, that was even more poignant because the music had set them free. There was no structure. There was no confining space. It was open to the universe. They were free. And if you think about that, the ending, right? And when Sammy meets, it's Stack and Mary, he says, before it got dark, right? I was happy. But what broke my heart about Sinners is that all of these people who have grueling hard work went to this place for a night where of freedom, away from Jim Crow rules, away from, just to let off steam. It was a place to have happiness. And for those few hours to be themselves and be free. And Remy took it.
Did he really? Did he really take it? Because think about it. Think about what they were doing day in and day out. Sharecropping for pennies, wooden nickels, wooden nickels.
Pennies,
There's an old expression. Don't take any wooden nickels. They were getting paid with wooden nickels, right? After being bitten, they were all powerful, okay? And they were family, and they were still singing and dancing. Okay, were they?
I'll let you have that one, Glenn. But the life that they would have to lead after being vampires, and cue my next question, which is about the Choctaw. Which is about the Choctaw vampire hunters. They would still live a life of being hunted.
Yeah.
Right? So I don't think their life, it would be different because it wouldn't be shared.
It's different.
Right?
But
it would still
they're
be
living
a
with
difficult life. It wasn't going to be a walk in the park for them, even though they were all powerful.
They were also controlled
that all night, though.
They didn't have a lot of free will with Remick either.
They didn't, because they did whatever Remy wanted them to do. Thank you, Tom. That's a good point too. They didn't have free will per se. And I think the only reason why Mary and Stack have that later is because Remy is dead. Okay, that's way off the tangent. But if you want to talk about, go ahead, Mark.
No, I was because when you mentioned
the Choctaw.
Yeah.
I'll watch the whole shit on that, man. I
want first I want to lead into the fact that I've said this to many of my friends who are vampire. Whatever he did to cause a vampire to fly during the day while the sun is still up,
right?
Because he comes into that scene landing, and I'm like, what the devil did you do that you were like, you know what? I gotta fly. I can't run because they're gonna catch me. You're like, I'm willing to burn. The thing with Remick, and this kind of ties into the Choctaw, he actually believes that what he is doing is setting minorities free.
Right.
That is his belief, because his whole thing, because what he says when he knocks on the door, he goes, I tried to help them. And apparently they don't want my help. I tried to show them something else. So whatever he told them, because I swear he needs to do a prequel, because I want to know what he did to that tribe.
Right.
How he got in there and tried to talk his way into them going, you know what, we're going to have to chase you out of here. But the Native Americans' belief in, and they don't mention him as a Wendigo, which is interesting. I was waiting for them to bring that up. But the fact that they were willing to chase him down, and I looked at it as Native Americans have, their whole interaction with white people were completely different. Yeah. And I think once he started whatever snake oil thing he was selling, and then on top of that, you're a vampire? No. We're going to chase, because the one of them says we need to go because we got a long way to go back. And I'm like, how far did y'all?
And the sun was going down.
That they were chasing this guy.
How far were they really hunting him? Is the question.
Then
And was he alone?
Might not have been prior to getting caught by the Choctaw. I mean, they could have wiped that. The other thing was specifically with the Choctaw too, but with Annie too. It seemed like the people that could identify the evil of Remick were people that were more in touch with the, obviously Native Americans are indigenous Americans, but Annie was more in touch with her roots and her spirituality through her roots. And she was able to identify the evil and had, power kind of a little bit, where so did the Choctaw, but then like, it seemed like almost like the people that were more dissected from their roots and their culture had less protection against Remick.
Shakir, Paige, you guys have anything to say about the Choctaw other than you want a prequel?
Oh my gosh, for real though, like seriously, man.
We're all. I think we're all of the same mindset.
We're all going to be disappointed because he said he wasn't doing one.
And what is
disappearing? I'm sorry.
What is it take?
What the heck was going on with that? And it's like, okay, so you're gonna give me 5 minutes, don't explain nothing else the rest of the freaking movie.
All I could think about the whole movie.
And now I got to figure out. Now I got to make this up as I go along. In terms of what are they doing? How do they even come to the point of even knowing how to hunt vampires, for starters?
Right.
I'm like, yes, we understand they're one with nature more than any other indigenous group that we probably have ever seen or known. But at the same time, how the hell did they get to that point?
And what does it mean for them, for Native people who have been brutalized by the white invaders to go to the home of a clan member and try to save them from this vampire? So I'm with you. What the hell happened that they're willing to, there's a lot there. I'm like, there is so much in that 2-minute scene.
Well, it's interesting. Remick was the one that got away because that whole posse, he was the last one. And they knew that if he got into a house with a bunch of folks, they were going to become vampires. So the problem would multiply, and they knew it.
Mm-hmm. But here's the thing. They didn't. Me, I'd have burned the house down.
Yeah.
Like, is he in there? No. He not.
I mean,
they were like, you know what? Almost like they wanted to be like Vaya con Dios, because if you've let him in your house, like, and I love how calm they were, because they weren't like, when everything went down in the juke, everybody was kind of like, we're really animated and alive. These guys are like, he's not in your house, is he? And the guy's like, we gotta go, the sun's going down. He's like, all right, well,
and save these folk.
Your problem now. If he's in there, and then
I do want to have time to talk about Remick, because and I also want to talk about Spook and Stack. So let's talk about Remick. There is some duality in the whole Irish immigrant story, and there's a lot of overlap there in conversation around how the Irish came to the United States and their roles, right? So, but I heard a couple of things earlier where we said that Remick really thought he was selling his savior package, right? Mm-hmm. And in many ways, he is the vehicle for cultural appropriation, right? Mm-hmm. Because what he wants from Sammy is his stories, right? Mm-hmm. AKA his music. He didn't just show up because this looked like an interesting place. And it isn't a bloodlust that leads him there. He's there to take Sammy's stories. Mm-hmm. Just the same way you see an amazing example of this when he takes Bal's memories. I
was about to say that. Nicole, you read my email.
So I definitely, so he's kind of he's a culture vulture, really.
Yeah, but you know what? They all learned at the same time. So they all knew what Remick knew. Remick knew what they knew. So there was community there that I think sort of flies under the radar in this movie. So he's speaking to Grace in Chinese.
Yep, in Mandarin.
And
Yep.
and they know where they got that from.
Before he
And
recruited, it was like, what in the world? Like,
yeah, and Stack understood everything that he was saying.
I don't personally. I don't feel like it's community. I feel like it's puppetry, right? You have one person who's puppeting everyone else. You don't. I don't think it's actually because they have
some
no
of their
free will.
personality was still there, though, Nicole. Some of their
That's a good
personality was
point.
still
Yeah,
there.
there is personality there. That's a good point. That's true.
So when Stack was saying to Smoke, "There's no me without you," even after death, and he made that pact with him, even while Remick was still alive.
Right.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, when they're in the when they're
So
fighting.
I don't think that they were all just puppets. Yes, he may have been the leader, but I don't think they were all just puppets. I think they still had something of their souls left.
Yeah,
and then the other half,
because there were promises kept. There were promises kept for decades.
Exactly, because if you look at all of the other vampiric lore and systems and how things work as far as that is, case in point, the TVD universe. Once the one that made all the rest was killed, by default, they technically were supposed to die as well. If you go with certain lore,
that's
that is. It's almost like what they did with the originals. If one original died, everybody from that line that he or she made, was supposed to die with that original. That didn't happen when Remick died. The only reason why they all died when Remick died is because the sun came up.
Right.
They were free, essentially.
In death.
It was a interesting. Like I didn't think of it like Glenn is saying until now, like that he genuinely believed the things that he was. I never thought that for a second until now, but like I could see it. I could definitely see how that could be.
I think that Remick saw vampires as a separate race, a uniform race, a very diverse race, but a race unto themselves.
I always figured he was
I can see that.
I always thought he was just kind of always looking for community, but he could never get it because he didn't have one of his own, and so he was just trying to gobble up other people's.
Well, but he did say very specifically that he wanted Sammy's music so he could see his ancestors again. He could see the people that he lost thousands of years ago, so he could reach back and touch that family. So I think that Glenn is right in that respect, is that this is a creature that's lived so long and been so alone with his own evil in the world that when he runs into something, and he understands the power of music because clearly he's a musician, but he doesn't have the power that Sammy has. And he recognizes in that power a way to get back this connection that he has lost. And he's going to do whatever he can and take whoever he has to with him to do that. But I think that aspect of his motivation, where there is something of seeking family in him, makes Glenn's hypothesis, I think, really viable, in that part of him did want family. Part of him did want to create that. But
community.
Can you do that from a point of appropriation and evil?
Thank you.
Therein lies
because
that part.
That's right. And I feel like it's an overture of what actually happens. And I think Kugler's talking about what actually happens in pop culture all the time.
Yeah.
Right.
Like intention is one thing, outcome is another.
Right. Like Black women are demeaned for certain facial features and body features, but when it's placed on a Kardashian or a white woman, it's somehow praised. And so that's just an example of that duality of it's horrible when we do it. It's fantastic when you take it. And so I feel like there's some degree with Remy that, and I do think he's lonely, and I do think he wants a family, and I do think he wants community. Glenn sold me on that. But I also think that the underlying theme of that I'm going to take whatever I can to get that, that's where it becomes an evil thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
And not caring how it affects the others. Like he doesn't care if you want to be a vampire. He doesn't care if you want to join this community that he's making.
Nah, you're gonna be here whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
Case in point, Grace's
Well, they're
daughter.
predators. Well,
Right?
I mean,
Grace's daughter.
yeah,
I mean, there are predators, right?
yeah, they tried, but vampires are predators. I mean, and we hunt. I mean, we hunt. We worship weapons, swords. I mean, how many people have swords and guns over their mantelpieces? I mean, we're hunters. Admit it. Why is this different?
Mark,
Affects
do
other
you want to
people.
say something? I feel like we talked a lot, but I didn't hear from you on this.
No, well, the thing with Remick, because I've watched the film several times, and I specifically, the last time I watched it, which was earlier today, I kind of focused in on him, because the Irish traditionally have been almost their history also, they've not been treated well throughout time. Couple of things. One, I don't know how old Remick is. I mean, he does have the gold pieces, but that could have been from a coven that he was a part of.
He did
But
say that he came. His father was a druid, so that's gotta be. And then having a Roman pieces makes sense because the Romans,
yes,
sent the pagans out of Ireland. So pretty old.
Okay. So my thing with him was that as a vampire, he has seen a level of oppression throughout time that obviously has affected him in some kind of way. The bad part, as you said, is the fact that, yes, he's a predator, because that's how vampires work. But if you go back and you look at and I'm not going to go into the Bram Stoker Dracula because he doesn't really do that, the love story and everything. But vampires traditionally have often, whenever before they grab the prey that they want, the ones that they want to turn, not the ones they want to just feed from, they have traditionally sold that person on something they know has been painful for them. So for him, I wonder, because again, yes, he ran into the house of the group. This couple was part of the clan. Then the question comes, did they really still want to be a part of the clan? Because the idea of now becoming a vampire and now you're going to be around the people you technically hate. Whatever way he sold this to people. And I'm thinking what he did with the Native Americans was like, they stole your land. You don't look at the cultures that you have lost over time. You come with me, give me that information, and I can use that as a way of drawing other people in and sharing all of that. But at the same time, he has to be selfish because he's a vampire. That is their nature. He cannot be anything but what he is. Right. And in the end, the one thing that I kept questioning, I was like, so when we kill the head vampire, we had mentioned this before, that everybody in the line is supposed to turn back, supposed to, except Stack and is it Smoke and Mary?
Stack and Mary.
I get the same
Stack and Mary.
Stack and Mary, Smoke and Annie.
It's the same actor, and I can't read it. They didn't turn.
Fucking Michael B. Jordan, man.
They didn't turn human, which leads me to believe that Remick is not the head vampire.
Yeah.
Good point.
That guy is somewhere out there still. Maybe when the Choctaw ran into them, they split up.
That's what I'm saying. I'm like, how many did they hunt?
I think Remick was the one who got away.
I want more.
Okay, so I do have a question from the chat. So we'll go ahead and take this from Jesse. How do you think the opening and closing scenes with the clan leader framed or contributed to the main storyline, other than being very satisfying to watch? Jesse, get out of my head. That was one of my questions.
soon as they said, "Did you remember the trunk?" I was like, "Oh, that trunk is coming out at some point." I'm like, "That trunk is coming." I'm like, I don't know who they're fighting where they're gonna need a whole lot of guns, but at some point that trunk is coming out.
Right. They don't. You don't show it if you don't intend to use it. Right.
There you go. There you go. Straightforward writing. If you show the gun, you got to use it later.
Yeah. I was like, that's Chekhov's trunk for sure. Like that's. I think I said that.
What I like about.
I think it's to answer Jesse's question from my point of view. I think that's a frame for us to keep discussing what is truly evil in this world. You know, because
the real human evil, not the
who
natural.
Exactly. Who are the layers of evil and the layers of joy in this movie? That's back to that duality. You know, like the vampires are evil, the clan is evil. The clan frames the whole thing because none of this happens outside a world where where the folks at the juke aren't oppressed and aren't in danger and aren't seeking a moment of freedom and joy that brings them together in this space. And so that is the umbrella. You know, when I think of the clan, that's the umbrella under which all this happens. This white, hateful, bigoted oppression brings all these people to this place seeking joy and freedom in this evening. And without that, this doesn't happen because they're free in some way, you know? So I think that is the umbrella with the little, I think of it, it's like that tent you get on the beach where the stakes go in either end of it and everything's happening underneath it. That was kind of my view of it.
Yeah. I think that the Smokestack twins, you know, they're not completely innocent in all this. I mean, they're gangsters. I mean, you know, admit it. These two guys are crooks. They've stolen from the Irish mob. They've stolen from the Italian mob, and they're on the run. I don't think that they meant to have that juke joint last forever. And they knew that guy was Klan. And you know, Smoke got behind him while Stack was negotiating, and the guy knew he was pinned. He says, "Oh, the Klan doesn't exist." Yeah, like that's what the devil says. Yeah, the devil doesn't exist, you know. But they knew he was Klan, and they said, if the Klan comes back, you know, you're not going to get another penny from us. You're not going to extort any from us. That's the last bit of money you get from us. That's done. But we know who you are.
Right. We see you.
Yeah, we see you.
Absolutely.
It was satisfying to watch, but it was a very nice frame, and I feel like the whole movie is an analogy to living as a Black person in America, right? We're always seeking those pockets of joy and safety. And most of the time, those safe places for us are where music is, right? And so, and there are always other people in our group. It's not always just us. Sometimes there's people who are biracial. There are other cultures with us. And so, but I feel like having it framed by racism here and the Klan at the end, but looking at it in that way, I agree with Paige. I think it's a metaphor, an analogy rather, for living in the United States as an African American, right? You're always under the umbrella of oppression and racism. And what we do with that is we spend our time trying to find those pockets of joy.
Yeah.
Right.
And, you know, in those pockets of joy, there's, you know, others are always invited. You know, you always see whites, you always see Asians, you always see Latinos, you always see, you know, Middle East. They're always welcome in those places. I mean, yeah, you know, you're other, but, you know, we're having fun. We'll show you how to party.
Right. And you saw that in the civil rights movement. You saw that in
it's always been
the Reconstruction period. You saw that in slavery. You saw that in the American Revolution, right? You see that in the American West when you see freed slaves going west. Also Chinese workers, and there's also Native people. We're all working to have a community in this very harsh, unforgiving climate. And so you see lots, I think, that's one of the beauties of Sinners, right? It is more than just a vampire film. And some people were angry about that. So talk to me about that. I know we're on this panel because we love it, right? But would you argue that Sinners is a vampire movie?
No.
What would you label it as?
is anything just a like? I don't think anything is just a whatever. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, we've gotten to the point where we blend so many genres in films.
Oh, yeah.
It's very difficult to sit here and say this is specifically this.
I mean, this very panel, almost everybody identified themselves as a multi-genre writer.
Absolutely.
We know no bounds.
Mark,
I mean,
horror film.
I'll say this. I know every time I go into a horror movie, I go to see where the inspiration is pulled from. And then of course, then I get screamed at because I see patterns of other things and people are like, that's not what it was. I said, I didn't say that. So for example, From Dusk Till Dawn.
Oh, there you go. I was about to say that.
This movie was also an homage to that too.
If the two brothers on the run, trying to get across the border, going someplace where they know there's safety, and this happens. Like this was not, they're in the.
It's very much like Dusk Till Dawn.
And even to parallel it, I don't know about anybody else on this panel, but everybody seems like those are vampires. Yeah, we need to do something about this. I would be scared for my life. Every time they're in the juke joint and they're like, okay, there are vampires outside. Everybody's like, yep, pony up, eat some garlic, this, that. I'm like, y'all are not afraid? Because nobody said, let's go out the back way and get out of here before.
Like they wouldn't be like they couldn't smell you and be waiting for you in the dark.
They actually did try to leave the back way. Right, Paige? They left the back way, and they
but here's something that's interesting.
Let's think logically here.
Annie talks about these ain't haints, and she's talking about vampires. Nobody else knows what they are, and she's only heard of them vaguely. And she's got a little bit of lore that involves the garlic and some wooden stakes, but she doesn't know a lot. But she's the only one who knows what they are. The only one who knows potentially how afraid they should be, in comparison to the Choctaw, who clearly knew what the hell was going on. So what's that about? Right?
Well,
but I think
people
they don't have the knowledge we.
She also identified. She says, "Okay, they're not haints. Haints do certain things." She knew the rules. She said, "These are vampires. They take over."
She's like her and the Choctaw. I always like what I thought was they were the people that were more closely connected to the spiritual.
Yeah.
So like Smoke has, I think, right, is in blue. Annie is in blue. The Choctaw, I believe, were wearing blue, like in their outfits. And then Stack was more closely like tied to life and being in the moment and things like that.
Can we talk about Grace a little bit? Did anyone have any additional comments about whether it's a vampire movie or not? I can't tell you how many people were mad that it wasn't scary enough.
They don't know what the horror is if they didn't think that movie was scary.
I mean, they don't realize, and I think this is a matter of they went in because they wanted to see one specific type of film. Once the whole concept that vampires were brought into the mix, that's all that they cared about. All of the other side steps, all the other subplots were immaterial. They wanted to
that's why I don't know if you guys saw, but Ryan Coogler originally didn't even want to be labeled as a horror movie, or he didn't want the vampires to be known. Like he didn't want it to be known in the.
They did their very best to kind of bring that in at the last possible minute.
Well, that was the marketing too. He said the marketing team did that on their own. Like he didn't want them. He didn't want the audiences to know until they went and saw the movie that it was a vampire movie.
Oh yeah.
I actually wish they weren't vampires. I actually wish it was something else, that like demons or something a little bit. I mean, don't get me wrong. I like the vampire angle. I thought it was done well. But it seemed like vampires seem to be somebody in the mix going to have some kind of information on how to stop these things. It would be nice to have something where you're like, I have no idea what this thing is, and I don't know how we're gonna get rid of this. Maybe like because I think that also enhances the panic. Because if you're thinking they're one like what I'll get go and I'll come right back. From Dusk Till Dawn, I found out later on they're not vampires. That's not what those creatures are. There's a completely different lore that Robert Rodriguez in the series, when he built the series, goes down and he explains what they are, but they are traditionally not vampires. So that was I think that was the only thing for me. I was like, vampires again. Okay. All right.
Well, nobody gets tired of vampires.
No.
But somebody, they don't. I mean, it's been what? It's been over 100 years. Bram Stoker's been writing about vampires. We keep coming back every 7 years or so. Vampires.
I like seeing the different takes on vampire. Like that's one of the things I like. When I found out it was a vampire movie, I was like, all right, cool. But like, I'm interested in seeing how Ryan Coogler writes vampire. Like, what lore is he like Shakir was saying earlier? Like, what lore is he going to use? If they kill the head vampires, everyone going to die? Is it going to maybe they're not going to be vampires anymore? Like, I don't know. Like, what's going to happen? Like, I like seeing what bits and pieces they pick out specifically for vampires. Like, I would have liked, obviously we want more. So like, a prequel about the vampires.
One thing. Let me give a nod to Ryan Coogler in creating Grace and Bao. They didn't speak pidgin English. I mean, I'm tired of the kung fu where they're fluent in English, but they've got this this pidgin English. And the first show that I saw where they got past that was in Warriors, Bruce Lee's daughter's spinoff. But they had been there for generations, and they spoke like everybody else spoke. But I like the fact that Grace went straight gangster. It's like, all right, come on, you MFs. We're going to settle this right now. You're not going for my daughter. I'm not going to wait till dawn because you're going to get her by then. I want to bring it to a head now. Come in. I like that.
And that's also a nod to traditional horror films where there's always that one person that does the thing that's stupid that's going to bring down the wrath of all the monsters on them, and that's
but she wasn't stupid.
Film.
She was bold.
No.
She wanted
That was Mama Bear.
She didn't do it out of fear. In most horror stories, the person does it out of fear or stupidity. No, she said, bring it.
Yeah,
she was ready. She had a Molotov cocktail in one hand and a steak in the other. She said, bring it.
She still did it out of fear, though.
Yeah, she did it out of fear for
her daughter, but not fear for her own life.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I agree that she was angry, but there's that is a classical aspect of horror films where one person takes action that brings things to a head.
It was a little dumb. Like, give everyone a heads up. That's all I'm saying. It was a little. Just say, "Hey, I'm open the door now," and then
I don't know if it was dumb. It was emotional. I think it was emotional, but it wasn't dumb. I mean, if someone were threatening my daughter, you throw caution to the wind, man.
I want to give Grace just a little pass. She wasn't at the door when what's his name tried to come back in. So she didn't realize, I don't think she knew that she wasn't supposed to invite them in. I think because who was it that he went to use the bathroom and then he came back?
Cornbread.
And then they're like, why do you need
cornbread?
Cornbread. It's like, what do you need permission to come back in for? So she wasn't there. She and her husband.
But she knew.
Else.
But see, Mark, she knew because they gagged her. They're trying to hold her mouth, and she bit his hand to say, "Come in." She knew what she was doing.
I do. We're at 10 o'clock.
Okay.
And the debate for Grace continues. There's either she was crazy for doing that, she jeopardized everyone's lives for her daughter's life. But again,
all of which is true. It's not an either or.
But some people think it's just, and she does scream it. Like, she's not playing. She's like, yeah. I do think Grace deserves some grace. It's an unusual situation, right? She's completely freaked out because Remick just talked to her in Mandarin and told her things that only Bao knew. So she's already flipping out, and then they're threatening her daughter to compile that. So she's not handling it well at all. And what do people do when they're scared? They either shrink, right? Or they become enraged. And that's what we get out of Grace. We
Yeah,
get that.
that was
Yep.
rage. That was pure D rage, and it was tigress mother kind of thing. She was going to protect her daughter. She lost her husband. She recognized that, but she was going to protect her daughter, and she says, "Come at me, I got you." As I said before, I mean, she wasn't playing Molotov cocktails. She was preparing Molotov cocktails. She meant business. She had a stake in her hand.
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
and she went after her husband, and she burned, and she was driving that stake in while she was on fire. No, Grace was the baddest bitch in the room.
I'm mad because we don't have time to talk about the women. But this is a predominantly male panel, and I'm like, oh, I want to talk about the women. But we're out of time, I believe. So tell everyone where they can find you online. If you're going to be at Multiverse, let them know. We'll start with you, Glenn, and we'll come back either way.
Okay. So I'm Glenn Paris. I'm a physician and I write science fiction, fantasy. I do write vampire stories if you want a different kind of vampire story, Unbitten and Audible, and it's a very, very small book. It will leave you wanting more. But my latest novel is The Exodus Heresy. Please get it. It's on Amazon now. GlennParis.com. 2 N's, 2 R's. Double trouble.
I'm Paige L. Christie. I always tell people put the L in, or you get a swimmer from the UK who is fabulous, but not me. I will be at Multiverse. I will be at Dragon Con. I'm Paige L. Christie all over online. And Nicole and I are going to have a panel about female vampires and women who write vampires.
Yes.
Good deal.
I want to be on that panel.
I'm Shakir Rashan. You can reach me at home at ShakirRashan.com. You can literally get everything that you need from there and just jump off from that point. I will be at Multiverse as well. And I'll be by then, by the time we get to Multiverse, Sageborn will be out. So that'll be the one that I'll be peddling for the majority of the conference. So that will be me in a nutshell.
And I'm Mark Abbott. You can find me at my website, whoismarklabbott.com. My latest book, Sinister Ascension, is out through Mocha Memoirs Press. You can get it directly through them or through my website. I will be at Multiverse. I do have an author's table. So look for me. Come by, buy some books. Let's chat it up.
I'm Tom DeSimone. I do content creation for Dragonmount.com. You can find me on YouTube and Dragonmount on all the socials. I also do have a website that's for me, but it's not really TomDeSimone.com. Not really a lot of stuff on it, just about me. And right now we're rewatching on a series that I do on Mondays at 9 p.m. We rewatch television shows. We're currently rewatching Andor season 2. The finale is on July 28th.
All right. So I'm Nicole Kurtz. You can find me at mochamemoirspress.com or NicoleGibbonsKurtz.net. But it's always time to go indie now. Thank you, panelists, for being so awesome and talking about a great movie, Sinners.